Welcome back to another edition of Crash. Are you ready? This is your host, George Whitehurst Barry, and today, as usual, we have with us our very special guest, Linda Runyon. Linda is not a casual survivalist. She has lived it for years, actually literally decades, and she brings to us on Mondays her extensive knowledge of survival from hands-on experience, as well as her, in particular, her extensive knowledge of edible wild plants. Linda, welcome back to the program.
Happy New Year, George. It's our first show in 2011.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Today is something we have never done that I can recall. And I'm not trying to play botanist because I'm not a botanist, but I am concerned because a lot of the questions I get all the time are about what's the difference between pigweed and amaranth, and how can you tell them apart, and are they a different type? And in looking up all the botanical figures here about amaranth, there are many different types. And when I lived out there with you in Arizona, I found that you have the most types easily I can find. Back here in the north, there's a couple that I can find. So there are six different types of amaranth. And on our material, on the cards and the books and stuff, I use the retroflexus, which is red root amaranth, and that's the one that I think everybody can see the most, right? But out where you are, you have tumble amaranth, for one, and that tumble amaranth is not found back here. I can't find it back here, although it does say it is all over the world. But I picked the one that is the most, the amaranth species. That's the most prolific that you're going to see everywhere, from your backyard garden to driving down the street, any country road, any place where there's cultivation, you'll see amaranth. Amaranth loves fertile soil, and it just loves anything that's like fertile, has ever been fertilized. That's where you'll find your amaranth. And it is probably, and we know, the highest in nutrition. So being the highest in nutrition, that's why I would like to center a little bit more on the other species that you might have in your backyard or side yard or wherever that we have never talked about that I can recollect. And the prostate pigweed is one. I'm just going to list them down, which, of course, prostate means on the ground there. Smooth pigweed, Powell amaranth, red root pigweed, and they're calling it pigweed, even though the second name here is the Latin name is Amaranthus. They are calling them pigweed in the Scientific Weeds of the Northeast. Now, that's the book I have. I don't have the Weeds of the West in front of me, but they're going to feature the same ones that I'm going to talk about here. So, okay, so we have 6 different types, and let's start out with the tumble pigweed that confused the heck out of me when I lived in Arizona. I got so confused about that until I finally figured it out. It took a while because it comes up and looks very much like tumbleweed. And looking like tumbleweed, you say to yourself, oh, well, that can't be amaranth, or it's tumbleweed, and that's treated in a different way. But there is an amaranth called tumble pigweed that comes up very easily. It's bushy, and it's branched and rounded, the finished plant that's on your roadsides and everything out there. And I finally figured out that in the western areas, that's your main, one of your main amaranths. This is an amaranth, Amaranthus albus. And the one thing that we need to always remember, amaranth has, generally, when you look at the leaf, no matter how tiny or how big it is, it's got a certain color to it. I can't hardly describe it. You have to see it. When you flip the leaf over, it has a whitish vein that is prominent, comes out like of the leaf. You can almost feel like you could strip it off the leaf. So amaranth always has that. And when I found the tumble pigweed, the leaves are microscopic. My God, they are the size of like tumbleweed, very, very, very small. And I made flour out of it out there to see. It tastes exactly the same. I just pulled the entire plant up, washed the root, washed off the dust, and shook it real well, threw it in the bag, ground it to flour, and tasted it exactly the same as the other amaranth. They all taste the same. They're all food. But some are easier to see and to use, and that's why we use the red root on our cards, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. And most every state has red root without a problem, looking square at you while you're driving or wherever. Okay, so tumble pigweed is amaranth. And when I look up the amaranth, the nutrition here in our book, I noticed that it has the leaves and the seeds, which have been done half-cup raw. And it's important that you see this first before we get started, because it is the highest, right? So any amaranth plant, a half a cup of it, you're talking stems, leaves, whatever, seeds, you have only 35 calories. But you have beta-carotene, 4,300 units for starters. And you have calcium, 448 milligrams, which means it's 2 or 3 glasses of milk in calcium. That's amazing.
And it's bioavailable
yep.
As contrasted with particularly pasteurized milk. That's another topic which we've talked about before. But the point is, these incredible quantities of beta-carotene and calcium are in a form that your body can utilize. Did you ever add a little bit of that to your salads at all?
The tumble amaranth, no, because the leaves were so tiny.
Yeah.
That's why they're doing this today, because there's so many different species of it, and I thought we ought to know all of them. The leaves are tiny, but if you pull it right up, George, and dry it, it's just like tumbleweed. You have flour. I mean, you can grind that through a Vitamixer, for instance, and have flour immediately. So, I mean, I liked it for the flour. It tastes just the same as regular amaranth. And, you know, if you stand like out there, and you can back me up on this, you stand out like in your front yard, right? And there are several different plants on that desert soil that love to come up in it and love to grow in it. And all these different types of amaranth are all over out there. And now I'm finding them in the north.
Let's continue right after the break.